3.5 million pages. That's what it took to blow apart the British government.
In the past 72 hours, the UK ambassador to the United States has resigned. A senior politician is under criminal investigation. Prince Andrew has been stripped of every royal title, and the Prime Minister is fighting for his political life. All of it, every single piece traces back to one name: Jeffrey Epstein. In January 2026, a federal court in the United States unsealed what would become the largest single document release in the Epstein case: 3.5 million pages of flight logs, financial records, correspondence, and deposition transcripts. The sheer volume was staggering. Stacked end to end, those pages would stretch over 400 miles. American media focused on the US names, billionaires, politicians, tech executives. But buried deep inside those pages was something far more dangerous to a different country, something the British establishment had spent 15 years making sure would never see daylight. The documents didn't just mention British figures in passing. They contain detailed records of classified British government intelligence being passed to Jeffrey Epstein by one of the most powerful politicians in the country. And once that thread was pulled, the entire fabric of British political power started to unravel. Peter Mandelson was not a minor figure. He was the architect of New Labour, a twice-serving cabinet minister, a European commissioner, and one of the most influential political strategists in modern British history. He was also, according to these documents, a frequent associate of Jeffrey Epstein, visiting his properties, flying on his aircraft, and maintaining a relationship that continued long after Epstein's first conviction in 2008. But the real bombshell wasn't the social connection. The documents allege that Mandelson passed classified British government intelligence directly to Epstein. Not gossip, not political opinion. Actual classified material from inside the British state. And then it got worse. Records show Mandelson actively lobbied his own government on Epstein's behalf, using his political influence to benefit a convicted sex offender. And what happened next set off a chain reaction that no one in Westminster saw coming. Within days of the documents becoming public, Mandelson resigned from the Labour Party. Then he quit the House of Lords, voluntarily surrendering his peerage, something almost unheard of in British political history. The man who had helped build modern British politics was erasing himself from it, but his departure was only the beginning. Mandelson had been appointed as the UK's ambassador to the United States just weeks earlier, a position given to him directly by Prime Minister Keir Starmer. When the Epstein documents dropped, that appointment became politically radioactive overnight. Mandelson resigned the ambassadorship before he'd even formally started the role, and the question immediately turned to the man who'd appointed him. Starmer's inner circle began to fracture. His chief of staff, Sue Gray herself, no stranger to political controversy, resigned. His communications director followed her out the door. Scottish Labour leader Anas Sarwar publicly called for Starmer to step down. Within a single week, the Prime Minister went from governing with a historic majority to fighting a crisis that threatened to consume his entire premiership. But the political casualties weren't limited to Westminster. The crisis reached Buckingham Palace, and King Charles made a decision his mother never would have. Prince Andrew's connection to Epstein had been public knowledge for years. The infamous photograph with Virginia Giuffre, the $200 million civil lawsuit, settled out of court. The disastrous BBC Newsnight interview where Andrew claimed he couldn't sweat and described Epstein's behavior as simply unbecoming. But throughout it all, the royal family's response had been carefully calibrated titles quietly removed from public use, duties gradually reduced, public appearances minimized. But nothing permanent, nothing irreversible. The institution was managing the problem, not confronting it. That changed. King Charles issued a formal statement, his first public comment on his brother's conduct, announcing that Prince Andrew had been stripped of all royal styles and titles. Not a quiet demotion, a public severing. Andrew is no longer His Royal Highness. He holds no place in the line of succession. The monarchy, an institution built on preserving itself at all costs, decided that the cost of protecting Andrew had finally become too high. Here is the pattern that should trouble everyone watching. The same set of documents, the same 3.5 million pages named figures on both sides of the Atlantic. British elites are resigning, facing criminal investigation, losing titles. And in the United States, virtually nothing. The American figures named in these files have faced no resignations, no investigations, no consequences of any kind. The question isn't just about individual guilt or innocence. It's about institutional response. Britain's system, under enormous public pressure, cracked open. America's system absorbed the same information and remained perfectly still. Either the British establishment was uniquely compromised, or the American establishment is uniquely protected. Neither answer is comforting. And the most unsettling part? We've only seen a fraction of what's in those files. Jeffrey Epstein was first convicted in 2008. He received what many described as the most lenient sentence in American legal history, 13 months in a county jail with work release privileges. He died in federal custody in 2019 under circumstances that remain officially disputed. For 15 years between that first conviction and the 2026 document release, British institutions, the press, the courts, the political class, the intelligence services had access to much of this information. And for 15 years, it was managed, contained, compartmentalized, not because the facts weren't available, but because the people implicated had the institutional power to keep those facts from ever reaching critical mass. What changed wasn't British courage. What changed was that an American court released documents that British institutions had no power to suppress. The transatlantic distance was the only thing that broke the seal. A U.S. federal judge did what the British establishment spent a decade and a half refusing to do: put the evidence into public hands and let the consequences follow. Of the 3.5 million pages released, analysts estimate that only a fraction have been fully reviewed. The documents are being processed by journalists, researchers, and legal teams across multiple countries. More names will surface. More connections will be documented. The British government has announced its own inquiry. But given that the people running that inquiry serve the same institutional structures that enabled the cover-up, the question of whether it will produce real accountability remains open. What we're watching in Britain right now is not a scandal. Scandals come and go. Ministers survive them. Institutions absorb them. This is something different, an institutional reckoning, the kind that happens when protected systems finally meet information they cannot control. The Epstein files didn't create the corruption within the British establishment. They simply made it impossible to deny. And with 3 million more pages still waiting to be fully reviewed and cross-referenced, the only certainty is that this is far from over. If you found this eye-opening, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into current events. Drop a comment below which revelation from the Epstein files surprised you the most.